Hey folks, over the course of the last couple of weeks, we've addressed the very sad reality of depression among young people here in America. They're the fastest growing age group for a suicide increase. And I'm sure that while we homeschoolers won't experience maybe that kind of statistics, I think it's still foolish to think that depression doesn't touch our kids in some way. And so I want to give some very practical things that we can do to help our kids navigate through the disappointments of life. Last week I shared about it's important for our kids to keep relatively busy because idle hands are the devil's workshop. But I also want to share today that this is why we homeschool. If you notice here on these Take Fives, I don't do a lot about math and English and social studies, though there's definitely a place for that. But academics are really the easy part of homeschooling. The harder part, and I think also the most important part, is to prepare our children for life, both here on the earth and also in eternity. And so that's why we focus on the things that we do. And today, as we talk about sadness or depression among our young people, I think first of all, our kids need to understand the gospel of Jesus Christ. Because man sinned in the Garden of Eden, that's why we have sadness. That's why we have difficulties. That's why despair comes into lives sometimes. And our kids need to understand that it is okay to be sad at times. Sadness is a part of this walk of life. Let's face it, my friends, if we weren't sad here, if we were always happy, this would be heaven. But this is not heaven. This is not our permanent home. And we need to understand that it has been marked by sin. So our kids need to understand that one reason that we need a Savior is because of the sadness that sin produces from the fall of Adam and Eve. I think oftentimes the second problem is that we have false expectations. And that's especially true because we have this thing called fake book. And yes, the slip of the tongue is intentional there. We see people putting all these posts about how great their lives are and how great their marriage and their family and things are just perfect. But my friends, we have to know that's not reality. But nevertheless, it creates certain expectations among people, especially young people. And when their lives do not fit those perspectives, when they aren't fulfilled in their own lives, it causes them to feel sad, or life is passing them by, or they're not experiencing life as they should. We need to address our kids and say those expectations are not real. In our home, we oftentimes say that when people are busy posting, that's a pretty good indication they're really not doing. Those who do, and those who don't, fake it on Facebook. Thirdly, I would encourage you as a family to read through the book of Psalms, especially the first 100 chapters, and then mark every time the chapter or each chapter where David shares that he's on the run for his life and people have turned against him and how difficult things are. I did that one year and I came up with every other psalm on the average for the first 94 psalms of David or another writer having great difficulty. And so our kids can understand that this is a part of life. David, a man after God's own heart, had incredible highs experiencing God. But in this world, he also had some great difficulties as well. And I share with my kids that when God appoints a time of difficulty, a time of challenge or tribulation, he also appoints the end. Life is cyclical. We go through seasons, and our kids need to understand that. So these are some practical things that you can do to share with your kids that, yes, sadness is a part of life without Christ, but with Christ, we can have joy even when life is challenging. This is Kirk Smith with ICHE's Take Five.